Behind me is the federal court building here in downtown Toronto. The federal court is an interesting creature. It's the court of choice when you want to sue national or federal institutions. For example, we were in this very building back in 2019 when Justin Trudeau and his new election debates commission, run by the dishonorable David Johnston, banned Rebel News and several other media from attending the leaders' debates. We rushed to this court with an emergency application asking the judges to order us to be certified, to order Trudeau to allow us in. And in a miracle, at least it felt like a miracle, we won. The judge presiding back then was named Justice Zinn. We were back at the federal court in 2021 with our lawyer, Chad Williamson, fighting the same fight again. David Johnston, again, blocking us on behalf of Trudeau. We won again in federal court. In that case, the judge was actually sitting by remote on Zoom, I think it was, from Newfoundland. That's the interesting thing about the federal court, is it's a national jurisdiction. You never know where your judge is going to be from. Well, we were back in court today because we have been attacked, in a manner of speaking, by the federal government again. And the attack might seem small, it might even seem petty to you, but I put it to you that it's actually a very important battle to fight. Stephen Guilbeault, who was the Heritage Minister in charge of drafting all of Trudeau's censorship provisions and is now the Environment Minister, he has blocked me on Twitter. And Catherine McKenna, who was a Cabinet Minister as well, she blocked my colleague Sheila Gunn-Reid. Now, this lawsuit has taken so long to move through the courts that we have dropped Catherine McKenna from the lawsuit because she's no longer in government, but we were proceeding against Stephen Guilbeault because he is still a government person. And that's the important part here. I don't care about Stephen Guilbeault's personal Twitter account or his family Facebook account or anything like that. The only thing I care about is his official government account that has dozens of civil servants paid for by my tax dollars and yours, putting out official government pronouncements. His Twitter account is not his family photos or anything personal. It is all government business. And yet he thinks he has the power to block me just because he ideologically disagrees with me. But that denies my rights to get government information. It denies my access to the same service that other Canadians have. And those services are actually quite relevant to me as a journalist. And especially when he was Minister of Heritage, he was making an announcement that directly impacted Rebel News. But it's the precedent that scares me. Because if Justin Trudeau and his cabinet can ban people they don't like from getting government services, it might be something minor like a Twitter account today, although that's not very minor when you think about the Charter of Rights and its freedom of speech and the right to hear and to speak. But what if they ban you from getting a government business license? That's actually what happened a couple of generations ago. There was a premier in Quebec named Maurice Duplessis who banned Jehovah's Witnesses, supported the Jehovah's Witnesses from getting a liquor license. He did so because he hated the politics of that restaurant owner that went all this way to the Supreme Court and they ruled against him. What if Trudeau started to apply his enemies list to other things too? We've already seen a little bit of that. So we're in court today, and we've been fighting this fight for 2 years. Stephen Guilbeault has done his best not to participate. In fact, he personally refuses to testify or give any information. He sends junior staffers instead who don't know anything. The government has stonewalled, and in fact, there are no fewer than 7 government lawyers or articling students, that's a junior lawyer, on the case. So you may not think this is an important battle, but the government certainly does. They sent 7 lawyers to fight us, which is exactly how many they sent last time in 2021 when we beat them in the election debates case. So I'm outside the court. I'll have a report for you a little bit later. If you want to learn more, if you want to see our lawsuit itself, go to twitterlawsuit.ca. Who are these immaculately dressed barristers? This is our legal dream team who was just in the court, the Federal Court of Canada. I'm talking about Chad Williamson and his colleague, Scott Nickel. Chad, it was an interesting battle today. I would say it was a victory, but the main war is still to come. Why don't you tell us what happened?
This has been kind of peculiar. And what's so funny about this saga, Ezra, is that it's not just this case. It's almost every case in which we're up against the government, be it for the whistle stop, for rebel, for constitutional rights, for charter rights. We're constantly finding that there's information that the government just wants to keep out of the court. And we've got to fight like crazy to try to get it admitted. So what happened today is we won a victory. They sure fought hard against us. There was 7 folks from the governments in the courtroom. And there's just Scott and I who flew all the way out here from Calgary. And wow, what a beautiful, beautiful city, some good weather and some interesting court proceedings, I suppose. Long and the short of it is we had been fighting this battle for about 2 years to essentially try to have Ezra unblocked on Twitter by Minister Stephen Guilbeault. And of course, it's not just a matter of, it's just Twitter and we're just trying to get somebody unblocked. This goes to the fundamental charter right of freedom of association and freedom of the press. And can government officials block members of their constituency from receiving government information through social media? This is kind of a new sphere. There's not much jurisprudence in this area, so it's a tremendously interesting case. We've been fighting this sucker for 2 years. This morning, as Scott and I are boarding the plane to come out here, with a whole bunch of work ahead of us to prepare for further submissions, we were going to argue the main trial today on a whim. And I don't know if this is like something coming down from above. I check my phone and go to Guilbeault's Twitter account. He's now an officially government verified account on Twitter. So again, like in the leadership debates of 2021 and so many other proceedings, Scott and I had to basically fumble and get some sort of a cogent emergency application together to admit this new evidence to the court and get this information before the court. And it's cardinal to our case. This whole time, Minister Guilbeault has been arguing that this isn't a government account. It's his personal account, which is a little ridiculous. I think that this is pretty obvious now that it's, an ordained gray checkmark Twitter account. It's pretty obvious. Suffice to say, the government wanted to keep it out. We made emergency submissions thanks to the incredible proficient work of Scott Nickel and also folks back in Calgary. Eric Thompson really helped us out, and that was absolutely critical. Some more folks in Scott's office. We did this on a dime, and we got a victory. The affidavit got admitted. This is huge for putting this information before the court, as it should have been in the first place.
Yeah, and that's the thing is Stephen Guilbeault has refused to participate in this trial. He has refused to swear an affidavit to be cross-examined. And the government has been taking we are above this. We don't have to participate. You found the nail in the coffin, what should be to their case. And they had 7 people there to fight it. I estimate that based on what we've spent, and based on the fact that they have 7 lawyers, I estimate they've spent $500,000 fighting us so far. So even if some viewers are saying, what are you fighting about being blocked on Twitter? Who cares? To the government, it's obviously extremely important, because if they lose the power to blacklist their enemies, they can't do this in other spheres. Conversely, if they have the power affirmed that they can blacklist their enemies, imagine what they'll do with this. Scott, you're here particularly on the constitutional stuff. What do you think? The judge made particular reference to the importance of this case because of the charter rights at stake, didn't he?
Well, these are very significant rights, and the charter protects the ability for the citizens of Canada and for the media to be able to engage with politicians, but really to be able to receive information from them and to be able to make fair comments the same way anybody else in society might. So it's fine that Minister Guilbeault might not like your tweets, but you should still be able to get access to his pronouncements, his announcements, his statements, and be able to comment on them the same way anybody else might. And I find it really interesting that we are arguing this morning. We've got this new check mark on Guilbeault's account saying that he's now a government related account, an official government associated account. And they don't want this information and they don't want it before the court. The same way that anybody blocked by Minister Guilbeault might say, I guess they don't want me to have the information that's being posted to Twitter on a timely basis, and the ability to interact with it. These are significant rights because they define the boundary of where government can and cannot allow its citizens to interact on an equal basis, or whether it's preferred based on some kind of status. The government to date has essentially said that Minister Guilbeault should be able to block whoever he wants without any justification, stating that it's a personal account. We have a number of pieces of evidence that say that suggest this is not a personal account, other than the obvious, beyond simply the obvious element that any Canadian might look at this account and see that he's quite obviously Minister Guilbeault. And they want to say that Minister Guilbeault needs zero justification, or very little or any justification, to block anybody, that he doesn't even need to respond because he should just be allowed to block whoever he wants.
That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest, either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month, or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.